So people will say about boomers, uh, look at what they allowed the country to become during their lives. They didn't fight back against this. Well, many of them did to the best of their ability with the knowledge that they had available to them. But I say to everybody all the way down to Zoomers and whatever who want to complain about boomers, I say, what are you doing now about the border? What are you doing? Why are you letting this happen, loser? Why are you letting this happen? So think about that next time you want to complain about the boomers or whatever generation you want to talk about. The thing that is overlooked when it comes to when it comes to older folks, whether it is just the boomers or the next rung down, is that they grew up, and specifically the boomers, they grew up in a white America. Many of these people, they end up in business, they end up doing very well as we're nearing the bottom of the hour. They end up doing very well let me just rephrase. The ones who end up doing well, they own a business or businesses. They either worked in those businesses or they just checked in every now and again, which meant that they were not actually, if they're working, if they're checking in quarterly, that means they're employees, like a regular worker. But that's a whole nother argument. I won't get into that. But these people, they do well. And then they show up, they get invited. The Republican Party finds out who they are, and they invite them in. And then they get to see big money, folks. Scores of millions, centimillionaires, decamillionaires, and they write giant checks. And then all these folks who grew up in a white America, where unless you were in the heart of some of the worst cities in the country, we're talking here about an America that was 90% white and infinitely less crowded, where nature was infinitely more pristine than it is today. They grew up. That's the world that's still in their head. That's the only thing that you can observe about these folks that are that age and understand why they are so vacuous in their heads. Why is it that they seem like they can't get it? They can be, you could have like a mackerel, a fish, and you could be hitting them in the face with a mackerel that you have carved truth into the side of, and they won't get it. The vast majority won't get it. The best will get it. All right. The ones, there are folks, I know many of them, they'll get it. They know what's actually going on. But the vast majority of them out there, especially these folks who with their dollars are able to keep moving away, white flighting further and further away from what's happening in the country, things becoming more of a conflict with their biospirit, things becoming potentially more dangerous in some area. They just keep moving away. So they are able to maintain the semblance of 1950s America and earlier. They're able to maintain, or all the way up through the 60s, they're able to maintain with their dollars the semblance that it's still like it was when they were children. And remember, we always have that child inside of us. It never goes away. Whatever you grew up with, it never grows away. That's why people who are even these well-read, and they will quote periods in history and all of this different stuff, they'll give you a date that is inside their lifetime for when things got bad. Things didn't get bad then. Their ability to notice is what happened. So these wonderful people, they get out there as goofy, as infuriating as they are, as functionally comatose as they are. They are that way because they grew up in safe, pristine nature, pristine environment, white America, the way that it was so control over our manifest destiny there at their fingertips. What's going to be next? Walk on the moon. What's going to be next? Win the cold. I mean, just one victory after another. What's going to be next? That's where they grew up. All right. They then use the money that they've made. And we're talking about the ones that made money. Just forget about this where there's all boomers and they're not all riding around on $60,000 Harleys with $120,000 RVs and taking, I mean, give me a break. All right. Give me a break. So those though that have that kind of money, they just kept moving away from the carnage that was taken, not the carnage they caused. Maybe they participated in some way. Maybe they participated uh, by uh, by being tacit. Maybe they said nothing about it. But nonetheless, they kept moving away. So for them, that world is still kind of there. They go to these Republican events. They see the big financiers who are hardcore anti-white. The big financiers of the Republican Party, hardcore anti-whites. They are just as hardcore anti-white as the financiers of the Democrat Party. That doesn't mean they can't be overcome. They have dissension in their ranks too. There are financiers that would like to finance political activity, but they're not going to bother participating in the Republican Party. They're not going to bother writing checks if ultimately they're going to be essentially outbid by financiers who are roughly on their level. And then all of these boobies out there who they say, well, we've had our third vacation. Now we got to go to the Republican event. And, it's $5,000 a seat. And we're going to be there with these Deca and centimillionaires. And then if we could really get invigorated, we're going to break out the checkbook and we're going to write down 50 grand to them, 100 grand to them, because they have the money to do that. And they're thinking that white America is just a step away. It's just a step away in their heads, but it's also a step away because they keep moving and further away from the carnage. And it's very easy to look away from it. It gets really hard to talk to these people and to bring them over when so many folks are slandering the shit out of them. They need to have their face put in what's happening, but they don't need to be told that they're the problem.